What's up, guys? Back here again, doing hopefully a quick video. Just kind of want to show you guys how I do my water changes. I've talked about some of the benefits of before for doing your water changes consistently. Um, I've also talked about some of the advantages and disadvantages to having smaller tanks. But as you can see here, I've got some algae over here on these crypts, and the Rotalla's got some hair algae. So I'm going to show you guys how I essentially pretty much go in and get rid of that stuff. Some of the things I do to benefit the plants, as well as some different things I do with filtration and things like that. So hang tight, I'll show you some of the things I use. Real simple tools, I guess, if you will, but hang on. So for this smaller tank, I'll just be using this. It's really just airline tube is what it is, but I'll use that to siphon some of the water out. I use that to suck up some of the algae and debris around the tank. Like I said, this is just a regular airline tube. If you guys have any extra tubes laying around or anything like that, I highly recommend you keep them. You never know when you might have to siphon some water out, or you have some smaller places that you want to clean up that normal large siphon won't get to. So keep that in mind. And one thing I've learned to do that's kind of helped me out is I keep two gallon jugs or a gallon and a half jugs around with just some water that's already has the chlorinator in it. So once I can empty that tank, or take out 25% or even 50% of the water out, I have my water ready here to go. Just kind of makes makes it a little more time efficient, so I'm not running back and forth to the sink all the time. So just a tip for you guys there too. And lastly, a towel. Obviously, the water can get everywhere and splash around, so if you have it, on a nice surface or something like that, you want to be able to dry it off, make sure there's no stains or anything like that. So keep that in mind as well. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to unplug the filter and the heater. I'm going to keep the light on just for the video. I don't know how bright this flash is for the phone, but I want you guys to kind of see what I'm doing, and the light on the tank's a lot brighter, I think, than the flash. So right now I'm going to plug the heater and the pump. So before I start draining water, I just want to show you, like on these smaller tanks, if you don't have a good enough flow, sometimes you end up with this film on top of the water. And I know especially for betta fish that can be harmful, because betta fish have that labyrinth organ and they need to get to the surface to get air. So keep that in mind when you start seeing that film on your smaller tanks. It's definitely time to do a water change. And that'll be a lot more beneficial for your betta fish. And what I'll do now, I have a little glass cleaner, and the thing that I do, I'll try and get as much stuff into the water column, because I'm going to essentially vacuum all that out. So if there's any stuff on the glass or anything like that, I'll try and get all that stuff off the glass, polish that up a little bit, so when I can suck everything out, hopefully all that stuff won't be stuck on the glass anymore. So that's something that I like to do. And you can see all the stuff that gets stuck on the glass and all that nasty slimy stuff. So and these little glass cleaners, they're only about $6 or $7. You can get those at your local pet store too. So now as that's done, I'm going to set up the little airline tube and start sucking some water out. Alright, so I've got the suction going on the tube, and I'll just kind of go around the plants and get all that stuff up. I don't know what it is about this Rotalla plant, but it's always got some of that hair algae on it, which is a pain. And one thing, I think just because this plant is so close to the surface, that it's getting a lot more light than it should be, so I'll have to keep an eye on that. But you can see the hair algae starting to come off there. And that's ideally what you want. You know, one thing I've learned with algae is you never quite get it all, so you have to keep up with your water changes. I don't use any chemicals or anything like that. I don't want to contaminate anything, you know, living in the tank, be it plants or fish. So I try not to use any chemicals. There's a nice shot at the hair algae and why it's called hair algae. But again, I'm just kind of going around and getting a lot of the bigger stuff out of the water column. Detritus, I guess that's one name, I've heard of it. These plants, there's always a lot of gunk and stuff in there, so you always want to try and get in there and get all that stuff out. And you can kind of really see how much these crypts have grown since I first put them in. So I'm going to finish that up, then I'll come back and I'll show you guys what I do with the filter and sponges and all that kind of stuff. Alright, so you see I've got the water about halfway out. Here are the sponges that I have in the tank. And what you want to do with these, because this is really, really important, you don't want to rinse these out in your sink, in your bathtub or anything. You want to rinse these out in the same water that you just drained out. Why do you want to do that? Because there's a lot of beneficial bacteria in here that you do not want to lose. You've heard the term cycling your tank and helping to grow all the beneficial bacteria. Well, once you got it cycled, a large portion of that beneficial bacteria is in these sponges. So you don't want to lose that. So you want to rinse that out in the same water that you just drained out of here. Okay? And so this is also the time when, you know, you kind of maybe want to look at your the actual pump. Make sure you don't have any issues there. If the impeller is dirty or anything like that. Those of you who don't know what the impeller is, it's the little thing, the fan looking contraption inside the filter that actually pumps the water. So, you know, look around your tank, make sure you don't have any glaring issues, anything like that, before you fill it back up, because, you know, you don't want to do, you know, double work, as they say. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, if you see any, you know, if your heater's dirty or you want to move some things around, you know, now's the time to do it when you don't have the water back in there. So yeah, after you get, you know, the tank essentially where you want it, you've checked all the filter and you've kind of done the once around, you're okay with the hardscape, you can start filling it back up. And with me, a smaller tank like this, if I dump all the water in, it's going to screw everything up and kick up more dirt. So what I always do is I kind of put my hand in there and let the water slowly run off my hand. And that way I can fill the tank up and not create too much of a mess. So keep that in mind when you're dealing with smaller tanks and you have, you know, some sort of aquascape or some sort of, you know, decor in there that you don't want to mess up too much. That's a good way to do it. Pour it over your hand, or some people don't put a plastic dish or something like that in there. You know, either one will work fine, but I'm pretty used to doing it this way, so this, you know, works for me. And you slowly fill it back up. Like I said, this water, it's already been pre-treated. It's already got the water conditioner in it. If I wanted to add any ammonia tablets or anything like that, which I shouldn't have to do with a tank this small, you know, I could add those in it. But essentially, it's really the gist of doing a water change. All right, so you can see I've got the water mostly filled up, but this is something I've kind of learned on my own. And you'll see here what I'm talking about. But as soon as I find it, as soon as I plug the pump back in, you'll see there'll be debris and stuff that will shoot out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug it in, but I'm going to try and catch it and siphon it back out. And this time I don't actually have that much, so that's pretty good. But if there's any stuff in there I missed, I can kind of go in there and get it out. Normally when I do this, I have all types of stuff that shoots out of the outtake, but doesn't look too bad now. Really, guys, that's about it. If you guys got any questions, please send them my way. But really, that's just, you know, pretty much the essentials, the basics you need to know about doing a water change. That you know, will keep your fish running a lot longer, keep your tank looking nicer, cut down on algae and other sorts of maybe harmful things that can really, you know, make your tank look crappy. So if you guys got any questions, send them my way. Other than that, talk to you guys down the road. Bye.